Welcome to On the Record, a joint production of the Ellensburg Daily Record and Central Washington University. I'm Joanna Markell, the editor of the Daily Record, and I'm here with Jim Gaudino, the president of Central Washington University, and we'll be talking about topics that affect both CWU and the community. Some stuff going on, including the opening, or about to be the opening, of an office over in Puget Sound for Central Washington University.
We are. It's an administrative office. It's not a classroom, is what I mean. It's not a new center over there. But you know, it came with the recognition that the majority of our students, about 65% of our students, come from the west side of the Cascades. About 75% of our alumni are over there, and of course that's the kind of the business center for the state. So a lot of the larger corporations are over there, and we were spending a lot of time driving over the pass. So to go to an hour meeting, it's a 5-hour drive, to and from. So it made a lot of sense to start to locate a function there. So we've been looking for a few months now for the right space. We started looking right downtown, and found hard to find the right kind of combination of space at a price point that we were comfortable with, and we were very fortunate to find some space up on Westlake Avenue, just outside of the downtown area. That's ideal for the space that we wanted. So we did. The lease has been signed. And we will start occupying that space first of the year. Will you have permanent staff there, or is it more just sort of rotating? I think we'll have more what we call hot desks there. So we have permanent staff on the west side. A lot of people don't realize that, but we have recruiters and student service staff that are already located over there, and we don't give them office space. They are pretty much working out of their cars and their homes, so this will give them some space. We'll also hire more of those people as time goes on. We've set some pretty aggressive fundraising and enrollment goals for ourselves, and we're going to have that presence to achieve those goals. So there'll be some staff that we hire over there, a couple. Certainly we could see some development staff as we hire development staff, fundraising staff, to just be housed over there, because to work that side of the Cascades. We already have the recruiters over there. Some alumni relations staff, as we grow that program, would be located over there. So obviously a chunk of the student body comes from the west side. They do. How does that play out after they graduate in terms of alumni? Do you know what percentage of alumni? Oh yeah, it's about 75% of our alumni live and work on the west side, because that's where so many of the jobs are. In fact, if you have a map, if you look at where our alumni are located, it's identical with the map of the population. So the vast majority are on the I-5 corridor, essentially from Everett to Vancouver. And then there's, of course, a large cluster here in Ellensburg, but there's a large cluster down in the Yakima Tri-Cities area, and then a large cluster in Spokane. So pretty much where the population centers are, and and obviously where the jobs are. So yes, that's exactly why. And since so many of our students come from there, they go back. The jobs are over there. About 75% of our alumni live on the west side. And in terms of the fundraising push, how big an initiative is it, and how does it differ from past years? Well, there'll be a couple of differences from past years. How big of an initiative it is, we're yet to set our target, because we're doing what are called feasibility studies now to find out what the next target number should be. But one of the differences is, and it's a nuanced difference. The last campaign was our first and only capital campaign, was really targeted to the university level programs for the most part. So it was scholarships was the prime focus. Having done that, having accomplished a successful campaign, I think the next campaign is likely to be focused more on the programs, more specifically targeted activities, all the way from athletics to theater to music to business and so forth, all around the university. So they'll be more targeted, and targeting alumni and businesses accordingly. And obviously the recession has played a role probably in that sort of fundraising too. Sure it has. No, across the United States, the recession has played a role. We also, it's played a role in two ways. One way that people don't realize or just don't think about. It's also played a role in that our earnings. I mean, we receive money from our foundation in two ways. One is the direct gift that comes in. The other is the earnings on the endowment. And the earnings, as like all of us know, looking at our retirement accounts and so forth, earnings have been very small and in fact negative for a number of years. So what we have asked many of our donors to do is to, if a person gives us X amount of dollars, they pay for it over 5 years. So we've asked them to take those gifts away from their endowment and give them to us directly so we can spend it right now. So we've actually been putting more money into the university from the foundation in the recession, but it's been at the expense of building the endowment for the future. So now that the economy is beginning to show a little bit of upturn, we'll return to the building of the endowment.
Speaking of the economy, there's about a month and a half before the legislature goes back into session again.
There is.
What's the university looking at in terms of priorities as things get underway?
Well, our number one priority is operational budget, and our number two priority is our capital budget. And it's like 1 and 1.1. It's not like 1 and 2. So they're in part because they go to different parts of the legislative process. So, but we need our operational budget for a couple of reasons. We absolutely have to address compensation. There has not been raises across at the university for 4 years, and that's not fair to the people who are working, and in some cases working harder. In many cases, most cases, working harder because we've increased our enrollment. They're working harder, they're working faster, and we're compensating them the same as we did 4 years ago. Of course, there's been inflation, which really means effectively they've taken pay cuts, and there's just no justification for that in my mind. It's also important to the university because most of our staff are nationally competitive, our faculty and our staff. They can work in other states. And other states are not cutting higher education the way Washington is. Most other states are giving raises. So we're losing our competitive edge in salaries. And we're seeing people leave the university to go to other states to work essentially in the same job. It's the only way they can get the compensation that they feel is warranted. So we're going to see, we are seeing, but we're going to continue to see, if you will, a brain drain, a competency drain out of the university into other places, and that's horrible. And once you lose those folks, and once you fall behind, it's real hard to catch up. So there's an old cliche that it takes 5 or 6 years to ruin a university, but it takes 30 or 40 years to rebuild it, to repair it, and we don't want to lose that university. We want to use that quality.
The legislature is going to be looking at a pretty significant budget gap again. How does that fit into the efforts there? And do you think the other universities in the state are also interested in staff?
Absolutely. It's the number one priority of all 6 of us because they all face that problem. And in fact, some of the universities are seeing it even if you will, a more significant competitive environment. The University of Washington, for example, can point to a number of departments that other universities if they use the word poaching. And we've had the same thing. In fact, what's very interesting is, since we can't give raises, even other universities in Washington are coming after our people. Because if they hire them anew, they can essentially raise their salary when they hire them. So we've had a number of faculty who have been pulled away from other universities in the state of Washington. So it's all of our top priority. There's another reason we're so interested in it, because we raise tuition in response, if you will, to the cuts at the legislature. So if we can convince the legislature to fund us operationally, then we don't have to raise tuition. So it's a balancing act between. I've never met a president or anybody in higher education that wants to raise tuition. We believe in education. We believe in access. So all we're doing is we know we're pushing people away and making it harder for them to get an education. So we don't want to raise tuition, but we also have to run the university. So it's this balancing between compensating your people for the work that they do, for remaining competitive, for not wanting to increase tuition, and kind of the accordion is really the state budget. And thus far, it's been squeezing in. We'd like to get it pulled out a little bit. To the point you make about it, they're going to have less money. That's true. It's also a matter of priorities. So they're going to have to decide whether higher education is or isn't a priority. We're already one of the lowest ranking states in the country in terms of the percent of our population that's seeking a 4-year degree. The more we raise tuition, the worse that situation is going to get. This is very bad public policy. We have to fix it.
They're under a state Supreme Court ruling mandating
correct
adequate funding for education K through 12.
K through 12 education.
Do you feel like there's a competition between higher education and K-12?
I mean, there is for funding. There's no. I wouldn't be honest if I said it's a fixed pie game. So money goes there isn't going to go someplace else. Money that comes here isn't going to go there. So in some respects we are now, but competition, no. Because we're part of a larger educational system. We get our students from the K-12 environment, so we want them to be as successful as they possibly can in preparing the students, so that when those students come to the higher education, as we call it here, they're ready to go. We'd be in real trouble as a state if we didn't fund the K-12 environment. So we don't feel it competitive. We feel that we're in the same system, but we all realize that. Again, we're all state-funded agencies with a certain amount of money that has to be divided up.
Capital budget priorities.
Capital
for
budget is, like I say, it's our number 2 only because that capital process lags a little bit in the calendar year in the legislative session. But yes, we have 2 major projects that are in our capital budget. In order of priority, it's what we call Science 2. It's a new science building that would house physics and geology and our teacher education, our science education program. And that's an incredibly important project for the university, because those are really significant programs for a couple of reasons. Of course, geography has for many years been one of our best programs in the natural sciences. We also have, that houses what we call PANGA, our geosthetic array, our Earth monitoring system, which is internationally recognized. Physics is also very important. Sometimes people don't realize how important physics is to this university, but it's the gateway into the engineering programs as well as producing teachers to go out and teach physics at the K-12 level, and then people who just go into careers that involve physics, or graduate school involve physics. So that's a very, and both of those programs are housed in Lind Hall, which is grossly outdated for the kind of work that's in there. We're losing federal grants because we don't have the space to put the equipment. We're losing faculty because we don't have the space to put the kinds of labs that they need. And then fundamentally, the students aren't getting the educational experience that they need because of the physical environment. So Science 2 is very, very important to us. But it's also very important to the community, because it brings millions of dollars worth of fees and taxes, and will bring hundreds of construction jobs to the area. So we also think it's a very, very important job for the economic health of our town and our county.
So that will be on the priority list.
That's on the priority list, yeah. We hope everybody would help us support that project, because knowing capital projects, we sometimes think of them as there's a new building on the campus, but capital projects are also very good for economic stimulus. So we're hoping everybody gets behind that, not just folks on campus, but people in the community as well.
Okay. And the communication building, is that still on the list?
That's the second one on our capital project. We call it the Samuelson Building. It's the former Student Union building on campus. And it's more than just a communication. We're calling it the Communication Technology Building. It will house the communication program. It will also house our distance learning center, our hub for distance learning. The television studio we're doing this program in will be housed over there, and it'll be a new state-of-the-art digital facility. But it will also house our data center and our university computing environment. So it's much more than a comm building. It'll be communication, it'll be a film, it'll be distance education, and it'll be our computer center.
A completely separate topic dealing
Yes.
with the state, the new marijuana law.
Yes, I-502, I believe, yes.
How does that affect things on campus?
It doesn't. First off, it's the possession, distribution, use of marijuana is still a federal crime. It's a controlled substance, and we must abide both legally, ethically, but also practically with federal law. The university gets about $93 million of federal funding every year, and if we were to we would put that in jeopardy by not enforcing federal law. So that's kind of one aspect. But more importantly, as a learning environment, we have pledged ourselves to be alcohol and drug free. So as a learning environment on this campus, the possession, distribution, use of controlled substances, including marijuana, will be prohibited.
Nothing is changing there.
Nothing is changing.
Okay. In terms of segue, it's kind of an odd one to go back and forth between, but any sort of enrollment changes since we last talked? Is enrollment holding steady in terms of?
Enrollment is holding steady. It is. It's around, I mean, we have what we call attrition every quarter. So, because students graduate or they leave for one reason or another. So our largest enrollment is always in the fall, then slightly lower in the winter, slightly lower in the spring. So, and we have to guess or predict. You have predictive models to guess what our average enrollment is going to be. And we're right on target for our 9,800, which is what we have targeted, what we call full-time equivalent students. The one pattern we are seeing that we don't fully understand, we're doing some research on, is what we call our head count. The number of students we have is up, but our average number of credit hours taken is down a little bit. So more students taking a few fewer credit hours. We don't quite know why that's at, so we're talking to students to figure out why.
And you're out there recruiting for next year, too.
We're deep into recruitment for next year. In fact, the meeting this morning was, we sat through and started talking about our waiver policy. And recruitment really never stops. It's a constant activity, and usually working at least a year in advance. Because juniors start taking their familiarization visits. So we're recruiting college seniors now and transfer students, but we're also out there making sure that sophomores and juniors know that we're here, so they can start including us in their family trips out to explore colleges.
Again, changing the subject, one of the things that really caught the community's attention recently was the death of Dar, the chimpanzee at the, the Chimpanzee and Human Communication Center here on campus. What does that mean for the center, and what's the future there? Well,
it's a couple of, it means a couple of things. If you will, at the emotional level, it's incredibly traumatic for the students and the staff, and really for the entire university. But those people who worked with Dar day in and day out, almost lived with Dar day in and day out. They're grieving. It's a loss. There's no question about that. So it's analogous emotionally to much more to the loss of a pet. This is someone that, almost a colleague, if you will, in the environment. So it's very, very, very difficult. From a practical matter, we're now they're communal animals, so they need a community just as we tend to need communities. So managing that is a very difficult activity. They don't always accept outsiders coming in, so we have to go through a very formal process of introducing new chimpanzees into the community to see if the existing chimpanzees are going to accept them or not. That's a very, very, and I'm not an expert here at all. We obviously have experts to do that. So we're in the process of deciding exactly how to engage in that process.
From what I understand, there may need to be some sort of addition to the building or some sort of construction.
Yes, it needs to be, so from what I understand, as it's explained to me, you put the chimps that you are introducing, you let them see each other, but you create a shield, a fence, so that they can't harm one another, and then you determine whether you basically socialize them to each other and acquaint them to each other, and then essentially they let you know through their behaviors whether or not they're going to accept this person into their, which is really more than a community, it's a family. So what Washoe had was a family, and it's just like people, we don't always accept people into our families. So that's the process of going that, and if a particular newcomer is not going to be accepted, then they won't accept that. Obviously, we won't let that person come in, because chimpanzees, can actually kill intruders if they're not defined as a new member of the family. And we obviously don't want that to happen. So that'll be the process, and it'll be done by very, very trained and skilled faculty and staff in the what we call CHCI the Chimpanzee Human Communication Institute.
Could you maybe talk about just, it's very unusual that a campus this size and a spot like this would have that sort of center here. What does that do to the overall kind of, I guess, prestige maybe of the university?
Well, it's probably our best known program at from an international perspective. For example, my field is human communication. And I, as a graduate, as a doctoral student, a long time ago, read all about Central Washington University's program here, and I read extensively all the work that Roger Fouts, Dr. Fouts, was engaged in. I mean, so when I got here, I was kind of starstruck that this is Roger Fouts, and unfortunately, I never got to meet Washoe personally and observe her teaching her offspring, her adopted offspring, language. So it's an incredibly significant program that really has changed the way we humans think about our language and the uniqueness of our ability to use signs. It's taught us a lot about the way the primate mind works, about their social system. So absolutely, it's an incredibly prestigious program. It is a bit unusual to have a program that prestigious at a university whose primary function is undergraduate education. But it's very, very important. It's also been important in another way that sometimes people also forget about. It brings about 6,000 visitors from outside our community, not the academic community, but from outside the Ellensburg community, to here every year. So it's a way, which of course is good for economic development, because some of those people stay in town, they eat in town, they visit our shops. But it's also a way to educate young people and others now, people my age, about these issues, and it's a way to do it in a very engaging way. I mean, I've had the pleasure of visiting that center, and actually, I don't sign, I don't do American Sign Language, so I'm speaking through a translator, if you will, but I've actually had short conversations with some of the chimpanzees, and that's something you don't get to do really any place else in the world, right here in Central Washington.
Yeah. A consulting firm called Ice Miller is reviewing the university's athletic program.
Yes.
Could you talk about that a little bit and the status of the search for the replacement for Jack Bishop?
Well, the search really hasn't formally started yet. In fact, the firm, the consulting firm, is helping us define the job. What is the, if you will, the next step for Central Washington University athletics? So we wanted an outside eye, an objective eye, to come in and talk to lots of folks to get a sense of the kinds of opportunities we have, the kinds of needs that we have, and what will our next athletic director be asked to do and be confronted with. And so the search process, we'll get this report, we think in January is when it's expected to come in. The NCAA has their national convention in January as well. I go to that because I'm a member of the President's Council of the NCAA. Division II, and I'll start to talk up this opportunity, and the search will probably formally launch in early February for Jack's planned retirement. Jack Bishop's retirement is 1st of July, so we'll hopefully have a smooth transition by the 1st of July. Could
the study affect kind of the way sports are structured here at all, or is it more just for the? It
could. No, it could. As a member of the Great Northwest Athletic Conference, the GNAC as we refer to it, I mean, one of the challenges that we always face are the number of sports that we offer, and the opportunities then for growth in just the number of sports, which I think most universities would love. Most universities have cut sports over, say, the last 15 or 20 years. Most of us would like to return some of those sports, just to give the students the opportunity to participate. We've cut rugby, wrestling. We've cut men's and women's swimming. We certainly have opportunities to have golf teams. There's lots of opportunities that we can engage in that would give, again, the student that opportunity. But we always face the problem here is that we are such a geographically large conference, really running from Azusa in Southern California to Fairbanks, Alaska. We play in a region that goes to Hawaii and out to Billings, Montana. So when you think about the transportation costs, it isn't do you have enough scholarships and enough coaches and enough space to have, let's say, a swimming team? Sure, we do. Or a golf team? Sure, we do. It's do you have the money to get the students, to Billings, to Fairbanks, to Azusa? So that becomes one of the major issues that we have.
Speaking of that, fall sports have wrapped up. The volleyball team did really well this year.
Volleyball
Football,
team did great. Football won
rugby.
the conference. Rugby is they don't really rank teams like say the NCAA sports do, but they have a national tournament, and we placed 7th in the nation. And I think we should have placed higher. We lost to in a round to the team that ended up winning it all. And then in what's sometimes called the consolation round, but you can get back to the championship game, we lost to the team that ended up finishing 2nd. So we placed very, very well. I mean, I think our athletes were disappointed that they didn't come in 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, but I tell you, that's an unbelievable experience for them. So yeah, we're doing well in our winter sports. I started off very well, so all is good.
Good. Anything else you want to add?
I think going back to the facility that we're putting up in Seattle, there's something else that I just want to remind our viewers of, and that's that while we tend to think of Central Washington University as Ellensburg, which clearly is the primary location, we do have 8 other campuses around the state, and we have more than 1,000 students studying at Central Washington University on the west side. So a little bit of this is not going to be a center, an instructional center, but we have faculty and staff, and again about 1,000 students that are full-time students on the west side, everywhere from up in Linwood down to Pierce County. So that center over there will also help coordinate those activities for those 1,000 students that are already studying on the west side. And other than that, I think that's mainly it. Things look very good. We hope everybody will join us in support of our legislative session as it comes up, both on the capital side and on the operational side. I do think there's a changing attitude, a changing feeling in Olympia, where they're starting to realize that the cuts that they've made are hurting the higher ed system as a whole. And I think just reinforcing that message to our legislators is a very, very important one to make.
Good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to our viewers out there for joining us for this edition of On the Record. I'm Joanna Markell with the Daily Record here with Dr. Jim Gaudino from Central Washington University. We welcome your questions. Feel free to email us at newsroom@kvnews.com, or you can post any sort of question you might have on the Daily Record's Facebook page.